Would you just like to introduce yourself and a little overview on what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thank you so much. So yeah, my name is John Allcock. I'm a fraud awareness analyst at the NatWest Bank, and my role is in charge of fraud awareness and education for businesses. So anything kind of what we say non-personal. So most kind of personal customers, they will probably get education through the branch or through the websites. I go to businesses and events and do what I did really. So it's kind of the top kind of fraud and scam threats to that organization.
The obvious and the first question that I need to ask you really is, for our members and the members that you met at the Finance Forum, what's the key takeaway for them?
And we kind of have this almost three-step approach, and it probably came across a few times in the presentation, and it's this almost stop what you're doing. So if you get a call or you get an email or you get a text, just stop, because the biggest thing, or one of the main tactics fraudsters will use, is urgency. So they want you to act as quickly as possible, give you minimal time to think. And if we stop and just kind of reflect on what's being asked, we're likely to follow our process and policies. And I'm sure you guys will have, really strict policies, procedures that people should follow. But it then actually, it allows us to probably speak to somebody. And I think that's the key bit. Not just speaking to somebody as well, but making sure that communication is absolutely key to them. There was a situation, a story I told where somebody had done a callback. So, a director at one of these organizations, they've been compromised, their emails have been hacked, and they sent an email to somebody in their accounts who keys the payments on Bankline. And that person had done a callback to that director and said, have you sent me this supplier payment for £200,000? But what they failed to do is actually say, what are the details? Can I just confirm sort code and account number? And it does seem very over the top, and like you shouldn't need to do that. Surely just saying, have you sent this supplier payment to ABC Limited? Great, I'll key it. But we're now at that stage where, because frauds are so sophisticated, and all this kind of use of fraudsters using, AI and the latest possible things to make them as believable as possible. That's what we need to do. So it's this kind of stop what you're doing, find the correct number, ring that person or that organization, and just make sure and verify that request is legitimate.
Yeah.
And there's a really simple thing that would be the advice.
Yeah. Just stop, slow down, and check all details, not just the overview. Yeah. I think that's a really good takeaway. I think it's interesting that there's one thing that we'd all double check if somebody sent us a payment request. It's the detail. It's the next step that we probably all skip or don't think of, because once you've said yes, you think, well, he said yes, but you don't realize it could get intercepted at that point as well.
That's right. Yeah. And we do see that more than you think, where the kind of confusion of the communication aids the fraudster. And it's really kind of sad to see. There was literally a phone call. I listened to this a few days ago, and it was a customer ringing into the Bankline team, and his account had been suspended because they basically put a payment on hold. So the customer keyed this payment. We have this kind of a rating system in place where we will rate a payment, and if it's of a certain rating, we will put the payment on hold. That is obviously a tool to protect the customer. You can appreciate from the customer's point of view that they were more concerned about sending that payment to their supplier or to their client, etc. And the lady who took the phone call, the telephonist, she asked some really good questions, and you could sense from the customer's thing, it was a bit frustrated and just want to get this payment through. But she was very, very clear with the questions. In fact, she probably asked 2 or 3 times, because she could sense as well that this customer was more bothered about getting the payment through. And ultimately, she said, "Have you spoken to the supplier? Have you confirmed the details verbally?" And he said, "Yeah." "And can I just confirm that is the fact? This could be a fraud, could be a scam. If no, I've definitely done it that way." Yeah. And he rang back 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later, saying, "Yeah, it's actually a scam. we've been scammed, and you know,
Wow.
it's things like that. Again, it's this communication and saying it. And it's a horrible thing to you know, to listen at. You know how it's going to obviously turn out at the end, and you listen to it, and you just want him to say, like, you just want to say, listen, we're doing a good thing here. We're trying to protect you and your organisation.
And we're all so busy every day, aren't we? And we, you know, we rush things, and it's like, oh my goodness, of course that's the answer. And you really do just have to slow down and think, actually, you know, what are the consequences of this if it is actually fraud?
Absolutely. And the thing with us personally, we have far more protection than an organisation. These regulations came in last year, and if we're a victim of fraud, okay, there's always that there is that slight air of doubt of collusion. So if you're sending money to a friend and then said, I've been scammed, can you give me a refund? You know, we will obviously investigate it. Not only that, obviously there are circumstances of real negligence. If you've, again, like, not followed what you should do and just sent money in and not checked it through, there could be an air of, obviously, you know, uncertainty there. But you're 99% of money likely to get your money back. If I kind of flip that, organisations don't have that protection yet. So this is why education is even more important, I think, in these situations, and following that process every single time.
Yeah. So is there any sort of payment types or transaction types that we should be trying to avoid or protect ourselves against, you know, more than any others?
I think probably there is no, or that I know of, a perfect payment type, I guess, because a fraudster will probably ultimately find some clink in the armour. Again, what a lot of these come down to, though, is the individual. They're not manipulating the payment transaction mechanism. They're manipulating the person to not do their process. Obviously, cash. It would be an interesting one. I can't imagine you being a cash rich business in that respect. Checks obviously fill me with a little bit of worry, because you've got that uncertainty of clearing, and that one is seen a little bit of a resurgence as well, where fraudsters will send a check to pay for goods or services. They might even send the money in without kind of notification, saying, I'm really sorry, I've sent you some money, can you send it back? And sometimes it's not immediately clear that it is a check what's coming to the account. So you look, you say, oh yeah, £10,000 has come in, I'll transfer it you back, but then obviously the check bounces. It's something that we saw years and years ago, and less now, but because we're not seeing as much, maybe fraudsters think actually there's an opportunity there, because people have forgotten that this kind of fraud scam exists. So yeah, with everything, there's always going to be a slight risk. Payment transfers, you've got things of confirmation of payee. That will get better and better. It's still relatively a new thing of this kind of payment check. But again, in the presentation, I always say, like, that confirmation of payee, so you put the sort code, account number, you do the name, check, match. You can never solely rely on that. I don't think it is 100% effective. I think it's 99%. I think there's been a couple of situations which have been known to me where a customer was actually paying deliberately to the wrong name and getting a match, which was quite strange. And then other things, as though, is fraudsters again will use it to their advantage. Pay it into John Allcock Holdings Limited. Okay, I'll do that, and you get the name match, but you're not paying it into the right company. So you can't be solely reliant on confirmation of pay.
Yeah. Okay. And what are the latest phishing or fraud scams at the moment out there that we should be aware of?
Yeah. So personally, it's the big one, I think, is investment scams. So, and I think the interesting thing with investment scams is, I think when you say investment scams, people think, well, you've got to be rich to fall victim to an investment scam. But it's not necessarily the case. And in fact, if you think about it, like, there's at least two occasions in life kind of situations where people might be given quite a large sum of money, not necessarily enough to live with, but when you retire or inheritance, you're normally getting a lump sum of money at that point. So really, there's a lot of people at a certain point in their life, they will have this money, again, it's not enough to live with. They might be able to buy a new kitchen with it, or they think, okay, well, bank rates aren't that great at the moment for saving, so what should we do? We could invest in property, or it could be art or whiskey, or it could be cryptocurrency. And these investments are ones what kind of probably like, there's a little bit of worry there. There's absolutely some legitimate investments there, but fraudsters will take advantage of that. And the tricky thing with investments is to sound like an investment expert in that field, which most of us aren't. You can probably do a chat GPT question, make me sound like an investment expert, and it'll splurt out a reply in 10 seconds, and you're just kind of retorting what's on there. And a lot of people go, wow, he sounds like he knows what he's talking about, this person. Okay, I will invest. The other thing as well is people are successful on a portal or a platform, and they think that investment is now legitimate, and in fact they might even get like small returns back, like as in cash. But that's what the fraudster wants them to think, and it's only when they start to invest more and more that's when they all of a sudden, despite being really good on paper, it's not a legitimate thing. So investment scams is a really hard one to educate, because everything you would say do, the fraudster just turns it on. And it's the number one with investments is check the Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA register, so make sure that company is legitimate. But and a fraudster would just impersonate a legitimate investment company. They'll just make one up. They'll impersonate a legitimate one, and unless you kind of really go on that website of the legitimate company and possibly even ring up to make sure that person and that product is there, you may never know. So there's a lot to kind of make you aware when you do it. Again, the big thing around that is speaking to people. Hopefully somebody of a who's a professional finance advisor, but at the very least, friends and family. Sometimes people do get maybe slightly embarrassed with that as well. So they think, that if I raise this in the family WhatsApp group, they'll say, oh, it's not legitimate. So they keep it secretive. Well, actually, that's not a good thing. And I'll leave you with this story. So this is again from last week, and it was a personal customer who she's also part of a family business. So the business banks with NatWest, and the lady who was kind of embroiled in this investment scam took money from the business, and we're talking a few £100,000, as well as having access to her mum's accounts as well, and took money from her mum's personal accounts. And this investment scam was over £1 million.
Oh my
God! It was
gosh.
a huge figure. Exactly, yeah. And she's been pressured by the investment broker, the fraudster, to do this investment. She probably saw it maybe as a short-term loan or something like that, where she knew she was going to get 2, 3, 4 times the money back. So she thought, well, I can do this, and the opportunity was there. But yeah, this is the thing. What can happen? It's horrible to.
And will she ever get that back? Is there any protection or any security on her getting that back?
I think a mum probably would. In the personal account, again, the business, it becomes different, kind of slightly different rules. They will have had certain. They probably would have had a bank line where they could control who can release payments with and without thing. And I don't think they would have had this segregation of duties in place, or dual authorization or dual administration. So this was allowed to do that. But I don't know. I'd be interesting to kind of stick close to that one and find out. I have asked to be taken close, because obviously that was is an interesting story that I can tell people. And it's very much a new thing. It's only happened in the last week or two, so it's very much in the early stages of the investigation.
Gosh, just shows you, doesn't it? Just shows you. So does NatWest do any sort of like fraud alerts or notifications, or how do you detect suspicious activity, and without telling us too many of your secrets?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing, which is probably the most important, is people need to report it. So, for example, if somebody's impersonating the fraud team, they're ringing all these businesses, and they can get that information pretty easily from public sources. If they were to go onto a company's house, you've already got finance directors, managing directors' details on there. They could ring up the company and go, who keys payments on Bankline, and all of a sudden, partial director information, and it becomes quite easy who has kind of the Bankline access. Not only that, but you can get like more information from the turnover from the accounts, which are normally partial on company's house, and you can also assume who a company banks with sometimes by looking at the legal charges. So if they have legal charges with a certain bank, all of a sudden you can probably guess who they are. And even if they ring that and they go, it's from the NatWest fraud team, the person goes, we don't bank with NatWest. Okay, you put that phone down, you wait a few months, and you try again, and say somebody different. That's why I did the bit as well in the fraud about they want to speak to the receptionist. They don't really want to speak to yourself, somebody like yourself. They want to speak to the receptionist and go, who keys payments on Bankline? And the receptionist, you need to speak to Julie, or you need to speak to Sam in accounts. But we need customers to kind of report that. If they don't report that, then we don't know the scale of the situation. So we need customers to say, we're getting phone calls. They're given an alias such as this, and they're asking me this situation. And really, it's from there. That's where we really do a lot of our education. We'll send pop-up messages, normally very swiftly, so we're quite quick to react. So people who log on to Bankline, they'll get these pop-up messages that something could be happening. Those are really important. By the way, we send them to millions and millions of customers, and we normally have like a call to action link. So this is what's happening. If you want to learn more, click on this, and we can see how people are interacting with that.
It's so easy just to close those down, isn't it?
It is really easy to close those down. That's right. Yeah.
I'll read that tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Yeah.
That's right. We send obviously messages to the kind of what we call our frontline staff. So the people who look after the organization, the relationship manager and the assistant, they will get notification this is happening, and we can be quite descriptive with that kind of wording. Speak to your customers. They should do like an annual what we call fraud and operational service review. So they should speak to you, and they should kind of give you an overlap of those kind of top frauds and scams. What's kind of interesting is the top fraud and scams don't really change. It's kind of the little nuances within those scams. So a phone call is still a phone call from 10 years ago, but they might ask for something slightly different. But saying that though, I did a presentation over the weekend actually, and somebody said, before I started talking, they said, we got a phone call several years ago and they asked me to go on this website which looked like the NatWest website. And it's actually, we've done full circle, because that's kind of the latest what we're seeing right now. So rather than ask for your PIN and password so they can go on themselves, they actually get you to go on a lookalike site. They skim the information. So as you're typing in your user ID and your customer ID, they're getting it on the other side. So they do kind of come full circle in a lot of these situations.
It's so scary. They're so clever, and they just seem to reinvent it, don't they? And do a little tweak to it to keep it current and new. So I know during your presentation you spoke to us about a number of videos. I know I didn't give you time to show those videos. I have got them and have ready to send them out to the membership. What's your favourite one? What's the one that you think they should spend the time watching, that it's going to get the most out of?
Yeah, so I've got one which was my favourite from the past, and then I've got my one which is the favourite, which I'll probably use next year. So with videos, I try and keep them as fresh as possible. So I change them every year, and I run them for a year, and then I kind of change them up. So the one I really like and always gets a reaction, particularly when I'm there in person, I can see people's faces and reactions, is the social care home one.
Okay.
I didn't have time to play it on the day, but I've sent you the link, and it's brilliantly split in two parts. And I normally play the first part at the beginning, second part at the end. So the first part is quite jovial. I came into work, said hi everybody. I got this email from the boss. I responded to it. I went on this portal. I then got a call. Oh, it's the bank. I give them a secret PIN and password, and thought about it and went about my day. And then it kind of cuts. And then the second part is this lady who's visibly very upset. She's a brilliant actress. Really, really upset because she's been a victim of fraud, and she actually blames herself. And because it's a care home, the money should be going to the staff and the patients. You know, that her organisation are really understanding. Don't worry about it, but she can't help but feel violated and you know, really insecure, because that's what it does. It's fraud is not a victimless crime. It, you know, it really does affect us personally, and it is possibly worse, isn't it, being a victim for an organisation, because you've not just let yourself down, you've let everybody down as well. So that's a really good hard-hitting video. I always have to do a bit of a trigger warning for that. And then the one next year is what shall be shown is the same organisation. So these have been created by the Welsh Government. And these is a series of videos, and they're put together, and this is like 3 stories, a bit like a sliding doors situation, where 3 different stories, and Frost very cleverly, you know, how he tags them. So it might be through Facebook or social media, and he gets a lot of information, and then he plans his attack. And what I like about that is they realize, because they think back to their kind of fraud awareness training, and in a lot of situations the Frost is not successful, but it just shows how he moves on them to his next victim, because he's just got this kind of conveyor belt of victims who have put something on Facebook or whatever it may be, and then he can get the information from there. So that's a really good one. That's 6 minutes long, so it's slightly long, but you can split that up into little bits and little parts.
Wonderful. I shall send the link of both of those out. Yeah. Very good. So for our members, what do you think the biggest takeaway is that they need to take away from your presentation and from everything that you've spoke about?
I think the big one is that I think fraud awareness, it's slightly different to like if you're doing your first aid. So I think if you do your first aid course, you've got to renew it every few years. And you do it, and you know, you remember bits, oh yeah, Dr. ABC and all those, that types of thing. But once you've done it, you can almost forget it about it then. You know, hopefully, you know, in that period, nothing happens, so you don't have to apply it. But I don't think fraud is the same. I think there's certainly a shorter gap. So I always say to people who come on my webinars, come every 12 months, just have a quick look, see what's there. And a lot of the comments I do get is like, oh, it's a really good reminder of this, and I learned that today, which I didn't know last year, and things like that. That's what I seem to be seeing, these recurring things. So one is about, you know, it is a kind of a journey, fraud awareness, just, you know, revisit every now and again, you know, watch these videos. We have our free online awareness training, so there's different kind of modiums. We're trying to work with, my latest thing is I'm trying to do these like videos on demand. So I think I get loads of great numbers with people who come on webinars, but if you can't come at that particular time, particularly the smaller organizations, you know, they might not have the time to do that. So I'm trying to create this video on demand library where they can kind of come on. It's shorter sessions, you know, like a bite-sized thing, so it's easier to digest. The other thing is around the you know, the communication of the payments. So the sort code account number, that's now needs to be the thing. You can't just say, have you sent me that payment? Yes, I have. And then the last thing, which I'm obviously big on, is reporting fraud attempts. I think that's because the banks won't know. If nobody reports it, they just go,
and you don't know.
Well, you know, I stopped it before them doing it. I don't need to let them know. Then we don't know, and then we can't educate. Yeah.
Okay, that's really useful. And did you have any chats with any of our members? Any interesting conversations that you'd like to share with the rest of the members?
It was they were absolutely lovely. They obviously I got put on the top table, which I joked around, which was amazing. The people next to me, you know, were really, really supportive, and you know, when I came back, it was whispering to me, "That was really good, well done." Thank you so much. I've got a couple of people come towards the end. They had a couple of them was personal experiences of fraud or scams, and they kind of wanted to know what would have happened next if I didn't do this, or this happened to my mum, dad, or whatever. And that is a thing, and it's really nice for them to share that, and I can kind of give them some advice, or even potentially, or contact me, like we'll talk about it kind of offline if we don't have time. So that's kind of the main things, was these kind of personal experiences, or this happened to me, but I didn't do this, am I okay? And so on and so forth. And that was what I found. It was really lovely.
Yeah. Well, we run the finance forum annually, so I think I will probably be coming back to you next year and have a chat to you about the latest scams, the latest activities. We need to keep the finance forum fresh and not repetitive, but I think this is a topic that certainly needs a good health check every year. So I shall be knocking on your door again in a year's time. But if any of our members wanted you to come along and speak to their companies, is that the kind of thing that you do?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, sometimes depending on where I am, a virtual offering might be better. So virtual is always an option. I might not be able to be in person potentially because I'm all over the place. And now I appreciate, obviously, having it in person is the best kind of thing, but I do make it interactive. So I appreciate, and also with it's virtual, you can record the session as well. So if anybody's missing on the day, you've got that kind of virtual, replay that you can watch. But I'd still make it interactive. So I appreciate people might be watching me doing the that's really that's that. And make it so that they're not on the phone, they're not doing the emails while they're watching me, because I'm continuously asking questions and keeping them involved in the presentation.
Yeah, I think our members would really benefit from that. So I shall make sure they've all got your details. We shall share this podcast. We shall share all of the videos and TikToks that you've given, but we shall highlight your favourite ones. But John, it's been an absolute pleasure working with you. Thank you so much for attending the Finance Forum and for agreeing to do this podcast. It's been brilliant.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Speak to you again soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.